Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pig Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, joined by Joe Komet for our weekly college basketball preview show. A big one, championship week, Thursday. We've got auto bids punched already. We've got some huge bubble games tonight. We had some big ones already go down during the day, and then we got some, big games break down tonight, as well as kind of look ahead to the rest of the weekend before we hit Selection Sunday, Joe. But great week. Losing all our bets per usual, but Joe, and how are we?
Cool, I'm good, but normally we lose, we laugh. This is uh, college basketball gambling is a bloodbath. It is a nightmare. You can look 1 second, we were just talking about right before the show started. I bet the under in the Tulsa East Carolina game. Yeah, I should probably call the hotline just for saying that out loud. But all of a sudden, it was like 9, 8 minutes in. I was at work. I looked quickly. I'm like, oh, okay. The game ended like 82-77. Then the Wake Forest pit over looked dead in the water. All of a sudden, it hit with like 2 minutes to go because they were shooting free throws and they, both heated up. But it's a bloodbath. Even like money lines. Last night, Coyle and I watched maybe one of the worst final possessions ever with Louisiana Tech not even getting a good shot up at the buzzer down 3. They lose to the 7th seed in their conference tournament. It's just crazy. You're seeing all these upsets happen. Memphis loses today, ends their season against Wichita State. Just a complete bloodbath, complete unpredictability. But that's another reason why I just love this time of year. College basketball is the best. And it's the unpredictability. I think that as much as it sucks when you're betting, it's what makes it so much fun come tournament time and, this time of year as well.
Yeah, over these next couple weeks, or like including this week, lose $200-300 or whatever, but you have some fun during the process, and you're not just losing everything you have. It's fun just to root for the chaos. It's just like another form of entertainment. Instead of going to a game or something, you're throwing some coin on some other ones. But just an awesome time. And first thing I want to get into, Joe, before we get talking about the current bubble picture, and then some of the games tonight, we're recording right at 7. There's a bunch of games that just tipped off. And then some more games tomorrow already slated and through the rest of the weekend. Kind of want to talk about some of the automatic bids that have already been punched, and some teams that are going to the big dance. You got Stetson, Montana State, Longwood, Oakland, Drake, Wagner, Samford, St. Mary's, McNeese State, Morehead State, South Dakota State, James Madison, Colgate, and Charleston have all punched their tickets so far. Obviously, there's a lot more teams that have punched their ticket, quote unquote, that'll be easily getting in. But these are all teams that, outside of St. Mary's, probably the only one that was getting in if they didn't get the auto bid as an at-large. But, Joe, I just want to give you a chance. Any of these teams that you kind of want to either shout out their first time to the dance, or maybe a team that you're looking to maybe make some noise come Thursday and Friday next week?
Yeah, obviously, shout out Stetson, first time ever going to the tournament. It's always cool. I feel like we've gotten, you get at least one a year of a team making their first ever trip to the dance. That's awesome. But this year, Coyle, there's a lot of mid-major teams. Normally you'll have the 1 or 2 teams that's 27-5 or 28, 29 wins. This year, so far, we have James Madison 31 wins. McNeese, I think, ended with 30 wins after winning their conference. Samford has 29 wins. You have 3 really, really quality mid-major teams, and I'm not even including Drake and South Dakota State, like a lot of the other teams you mentioned. But I feel like this year is very deep with mid-major talent. But if I had to pick a team out of those 3 that I could see making a deep run, I would have to say McNeese State, coached with Will Wade, very athletic team, very fun team. If they get the right draw, it wouldn't shock me to wake up on like Sweet 16 Thursday night and have McNeese State playing, going on a little run. If I had to put money on any of the auto bids right now, that's who I would go with personally, just because Will Wade, as a head coach, has been there already with LSU, has the experience of coaching in the tournament, has a team that is full of dudes. I don't care what league you play in, you win 30 games. That's impressive. I think they have the second best win percentage in the country after James Madison, who has 31 wins. But I would pick McNeese State out of any one of those teams to make a deep run. Shoemate I feel like he's on SportsCenter all the time with his top 10s. He had a putback dunk last night. That was insane. He's a guy, you might see kind of go viral like Florida Gulf Coast did in Dunk City back, I think that's already 10, 11 years ago now. That's crazy. But you could see something like that happen with this McNeese State team. I think they're pretty special. So naturally, they'll lose by 40 in the first round.
I'll give my shout out to Colgate. They've won 5 of those last 6 Patriot League titles, but the only one that they lost was the COVID year when Boston won, and the NCAA tournament got shut down. So they've been the representative now 5 straight years out of the Patriot League. And this isn't the Colgate team that from the past few years I feel like up as, oh, look at them as a 13 or a 4. I think last year it was Texas. They were in a pretty good fight. They just lost steam down the stretch. And then the year before, I believe it was Arkansas that they were in a pretty good battle with. And then same thing, just the athleticism of some of those power schools eventually took over. But this Colgate team has kind of flipped their identity a little bit. Still a nice offensive team, shoots a lot of threes, share the ball, but they've really kind of play the game at a slow pace, make it a grind. So if they get a team that maybe plays that same style in a matchup, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Maybe like an Iowa State in like a 215. I think that one could maybe be a close battle, just trying to keep the pace down and play it in like the high 50s, low 60s or something. But shout out to them. They built a dynasty there, I think you could say, in the Patriot League. They're the top team each and every year, and I'm surprised that Matt Langle's still there. Not sure if it's like a thing that he just wants to stay there or if he hasn't really got the opportunity to get a bigger job that he wants yet. But shout out to Colgate. And then a team that I guess I'm going to be keeping an eye out for, I think St. Mary's is a pretty easy one to say. I think they have a chance to be a second weekend team. But I'm going to go with Drake, the winner out of the Missouri Valley. That was, I think, your pick, right, Joe, to win the Missouri Valley?
Yeah, you and I both had Drake.
Yeah, my pick as well. And they took down Indiana State. Hopefully Indiana State still gets in. But Tucker DeVries, he was there in the tournament last year. They battled Miami tough for most of the game. It's an experienced squad, and he can really score. He can take over and be the guy that goes up there and gets 25, 30 points in a game and wills this team to an 11 over a 6, a 12 over a 5, whatever type seed that they get. So I'm saying keep an eye out for Drake and Tucker DeVries next week when the bracket comes out and have them circled. I think that's a team that can make some noise. And neither one of us mentioned James Madison, the most wins in college basketball this year. I'm interested to see what seed they get and kind of the draw that they have. But anything else on the auto bid so far, Joe, before we head into some bubble talk?
No, I mean the team so far, we kind of touched on all of them. There's a couple more mid majors that if they end up getting their auto bids, like a Grand Canyon out of the whack, they could be. I think if they win their tournament, another 30-win team or 29 wins. And then I think you have Princeton as well in there as another really good basketball team. That, mid major that not a lot of people know about. If they end up winning the another team that can make a deep run. But I think we kind of touched on all of them here, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad that we got these big mid majors in, because as much as the chaos is awesome sometimes, it stinks when you have these big teams. Like if James Madison got an upset, 30-4, they're probably not making the tournament, which is ridiculous. But that's another story for another day, and they don't have to worry about that because they got in.
Yeah, and like another thing, like you were saying with the chaos, Toledo has won the MAC 4 straight years. They will not go to the NCAA tournament once out of that stretch. They lost today to the 8 seed Kent State, and now Kent State's favored by 1.5 points tomorrow against, I believe it's Bowling Green. That just goes to show you the MAC, how kind of wide open that conference is as well. But all right, this was as of 5:25. Lenardi put this out on Twitter, his latest bracketology. So his last 4 buys: Colorado State, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and St. John's. That was after Mississippi State. St. John's won. Colorado State plays tonight against Nevada. Last 4 in: Seton Hall, Colorado, Virginia, and Indiana State. The terrible thing there for Indiana State is pretty much all these other teams, either in front of them or behind them, still have opportunities to play. They're done, so they're just sitting there waiting. First 4 out: A&M, New Mexico, Pittsburgh, and Kansas State. Pitt won today as well. And then next 4 out: Wake Forest, Villanova falls all the way to the next 4 out, even after the win last night over DePaul. Iowa, who they're playing right now against Ohio State, and then Providence in the next 4 out as well. I guess I kind of want to start there in the next 4 out, Joe. Villanova and Providence. I'm on the record saying I think one of those teams is going to win tonight. Providence playing Creighton right now. I believe they were trailing a few. What are your thoughts on potentially one of those 2 teams out of the Big East going from the next 4 out to in the bracket potentially with a win tonight? Providence over Creighton or Villanova over Marquette?
Well, if we're talking about a team tonight getting one win and kind of vaulting in, You'd have to go with Providence because I think the committee is going to look if Nova beats Marquette as, oh, Marquette didn't have Kolek. They might count that against them. So if you're looking at, a team to just win one game and be safely in, I would say Providence, although I think Nova, even without the Kolek injury, because I think this is like the ultimate, oh, they needed a miracle to beat DePaul. You know what I mean? Everyone bet against Nova. Nova sucks. Nova's dead. It wouldn't shock me if Nova won tonight by 20 points. It really wouldn't. If they just came out, because that's something as a coach. If Kyle Neptune, is a good coach, he can use it as motivation. Like, look, we survived. Flush that game. It happened. It's over. We won. We're still playing. We still get an opportunity tonight to help further solidify our resume, our chance to make the tournament. Because if they lose, I think Villanova's done. Because only beating DePaul by a point really, really hurts you. But Coyle, if I had to, pick one team just based off of winning tonight and then being safe, it'd probably be Providence because getting a win over a fully loaded Creighton team would be big.
Yeah, huge. I mean, obviously, either one of them wins, they get a chance then to go on and play some more. Would they match up with each other in the next round?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, so that would be. I mean, that would be awesome. Whoever would win that game, I think, would definitely be in. But circling back to the Big East real quick, I'm really pumped up for that St. John's UConn game tomorrow. That should be awesome. But looking back at the bubble, Kansas State's a team that has my attention. They're playing right now against Iowa State. If Kansas State is able to win tonight, they're down 15-11. 8 minutes left, or 8 minutes into the first half in the Big 12 tournament to Iowa State. If they win that game tonight, I think you really have to consider putting them in. That'd be their second straight win over Iowa State, who's probably going to be a 2 seed there as well. Wake Forest, they're done. Seton Hall, their last 4 in. I think they're going to be in, but another team where, all right, I mean, Texas A&M playing tonight, New Mexico playing tonight, Kansas State playing now, Colorado and Virginia tonight. Seton Hall just earlier, but now they're in wait and see mode. They can't do anything else but hope kind of these other bubble teams lose, and no more bid stealers too. I mean, I think they kind of got away with not away with it, but some of these bubble teams are like, all right, good for St. Joe's for beating Richmond. Now we just have to hope like Dayton wins, not VCU or St. Joe's wins the A10. Teams like that, where we kind of talked about that last week, where same thing with like the Sun Belt, where if James Madison didn't win the title, were they maybe going to get in, and that steals another bid from one of these bubble teams. So if you're not playing anymore, you're basically like paying attention and refreshing Joe Lenardi and Jerry Palm's page every hour and seeing who do we have to root against to lose. But at the same time, it's so crazy to me because how much they say we value the entire body of work, the entire season. But it's like, all right, if Providence loses to Creighton tonight, but it wasn't like March 14th. Instead, it was January 25th. Like, are you really fluctuating and moving that much on this? It's like, I feel like when they say they take the entire body of work in, I feel like they evaluate these last few weeks much more because there's so much more movement on the bubble these last few weeks.
Yeah, Coyle, I agree. And a perfect example of that, I had it on a little bit on my phone towards the end of the day when I was like typing out notes and stuff on my computer. They were showing St. John's resume, and it showed like a neutral court win against Utah from like the first week of the season. It's like, yeah, that's good to have that, that game on there as a win. But like you said, I don't think the committee is really going to be sitting there at the end of the day if St. John's loses to UConn tomorrow, being like, all right, well, St. John's has this win against Utah, Virginia. Oh, well, look at this. They beat, whoever back in November. Oh, they lost at Memphis. Stuff like that. I'm with you. I think it's definitely more so weighted towards the last couple of weeks of the season rather than the first few. Because you'll see, these teams every year. There's that one team, which I think this year it could be Cincinnati, that makes a deep run in their conference tournament, and all of a sudden it's like, oh look, they moved. Lenardi didn't even have them in the conversation to now Lenardi has them in the last 4 in. And a lot of times, like I think it was A&M a few years ago, went on that run in the SEC tournament all the way to the final. People were saying they should get in. They ended up missing the tournament. But I'm kind of with you, Coyle. The second half does get evaluated more than the first half of the season. But I also feel like sometimes a lot of people put too much pressure on the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season as, oh, this is the reason why you should be in or out.
Mm-hmm. And then when you look, though, at the same time, like USF, the reason they get held out is because they lost back in November or whatever Michigan and Maine. So
Yeah.
the whole process is confusing. I would love to just like one time actually be able to sit in with the actual committee and not hear from TV from like Lenardi or Palm because obviously they know what they're talking about, but at the same time, do they're not in the room like when we're actually hearing the conversations and what kind of is taking most matters into hand. But I guess that's kind of our little bit of a bubble talk. We got a bunch more games tonight. We got some big ones going on right now. Loyola Chicago. I was just talking about Dayton. Loyola Chicago up 63-62 on St. Bonaventure in overtime. That's a pretty big one where because I think Loyola Chicago definitely could knock off Dayton and maybe get that auto bid there out of the A10. San Diego State, UNLV going on right now. San Diego State was down 5 at halftime. They're now up 7. UNLV was a dealer there. Ohio State, Iowa going on right now too. Ohio State up 43-38 at half. And then we had Kansas State, Iowa State, Providence, Creighton. NC State with the win over Duke, get to the semis, maybe make some noise.
Could be playing Boston College in the semis if they end up beating, which that would be the least shocking thing if Boston College ended up beating Virginia. But I do feel like, sorry to cut you off, Coyle, like this is another perfect. Everyone's like, oh, Virginia, they suck. I could see Virginia winning this game tonight like 41-38, getting that win to kind of put them in safely. But we could very well have NC State, Boston College, winner goes to the ACC championship game.
Be awesome. That would be March. And then the last game I was going to reference going on now, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. I guess any game out of that bunch that you're particularly keeping a close eye on.
What was that call? I'm sorry, you cut out.
I said that the last game I was going to reference, Ole Miss, A&M. Any of those games that I went through that you're keeping a particularly close eye on?
Well, I think for the most part, we kind of already talked about it, but Kansas State, Iowa State, if Kansas State gets this win here, they really set themselves up in an interesting position. A, they're in the Big 12 semifinals. B, their resume is getting pretty good. And you're playing in Kansas City, Missouri, which is right across the border. It's pretty much a home crowd. Kansas is already gone. Like, Kansas State, your biggest worry is having to play Kansas. Kansas is out. You now kind of have a run. I don't think they'd be able to beat Houston. I think Houston's still far and away the best. But Iowa State being the 2 seed, they wouldn't have to worry about Houston until a potential Big 12 title game. And if they win, I believe they could potentially end up getting Cincinnati in the Big 12 semifinals. Cincinnati, another team we haven't talked about yet, but they're, Lenardi had them kind of hovering around the bubble as well. If they beat Baylor tonight, all of a sudden Cincinnati might be playing in the semifinals, having a shot to make potentially even get the auto bid as well. But I would say definitely that Kansas State Iowa State game is the biggest one right now that I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah, Providence only the Creighton, so they're hanging around. That'll probably be the game I flip on once we're done. But all right, quickly we'll touch on a few of the games going on tonight that have some significance. Colorado State, Nevada, and Boise State. I probably won't make it up for this one, not till 11:30. But Boise State, New Mexico, Mountain West quarterfinals. Those games should be awesome. Villanova, Marquette. We already kind of touched on. Cincinnati, Baylor. Cincinnati with the win there. Are they back? Maybe in the conversation. And then one more game. You could pick your poison on any of these, but Penn State, Indiana. Indiana's been playing really well actually down the stretch. I think they've won like 4 or 5 or 5 or 6. Penn State beat them both times this year. Indiana, if they win this game, they play Nebraska, who away from home has certainly not been a great team. Could we see a scenario maybe where Indiana makes a little bit of a run here in the Big Ten tournament? Any games out of that bunch, though, Joe, that you want to hit on?
I mean, I would say definitely the Boise State, New Mexico game, just because, we kind of talked about it on the bubble. New Mexico is hanging on by a thread right now. They're currently, Lenardi has them in the first 4 out. They're currently the second team out as of 5:45 or 5:30, whatever the hell time you put that out. So New Mexico desperately needs a win, and a win on a neutral court against Boise State. When you look at the teams around them, A&M, the most inconsistent team in the country. They're down 3 points right now to Ole Miss. Kansas State, obviously playing Iowa State. That's they're down 4 right now. It's not a guarantee they win that game. So if you're in New Mexico and even if you just win this game with the right results, it just might be able to sneak you in even if you get that last bid, like if you're a New Mexico fan, you're rooting against the entire bubble. The same can be said for everyone else, but like same goes for if you're New Mexico sitting there, Virginia playing Boston College. With Virginia, the way they've been playing of late, it wouldn't shock me if they lost, even though I do think they're going to win. I mean, you win this game against Boise State, you, for the most part, like you have to ask me, I think New Mexico is safely in regardless because they've had a really good season. And the Mountain West is a lot better than these bracketology people will give it credit for. The problem is, though, you lose one game like, New Mexico losing to Air Force. Just brutal. But I would say that's probably the biggest game in terms of the bubble like significance in like the late slate tonight.
Yeah, the bubble is definitely alive and well tonight. I'm looking forward to that 9 o'clock CBS Sports Network Colorado State Nevada game. I think that one's going to be fun. I think we're going to see some points in that game. We can't watch this game, but low key, I think it's going to be a fun and exciting, high scoring game. Stanford, Washington State on the Pac-12 network over 142.5. I think we could get a lot of points in that one. There's a lot of talent, but I'm definitely keeping a close eye on this Penn State Indiana game because I like the way that the bracket opens up for Indiana. If they win this, I think they could definitely beat Nebraska, and then I believe they would match up with Illinois before a third game, probably with Purdue. But this is an Indiana team that was projected to finish near the top of the Big Ten this year. The talent's there; they just really haven't got it all together all season. But I definitely think they could go beat Nebraska if they win tonight. I don't see them losing to a Penn State team that isn't that great for a third time. Keeping an eye on Indiana. Maybe they get to the title game against Purdue potentially and maybe find their way into the dance after many people were calling it a lost season out there. But yeah, Villanova Marquette definitely have to keep a close eye on. Florida, I actually have Florida winning the SEC tournament. There as the 6th seed, I believe. They got Georgia tonight. I'll be keeping an eye on that one as well. But I guess looking forward, Joe, before we head out, conference tournament, one or two that you're looking forward to the most for the semifinals and the championship over this weekend before we get into Sunday and Selection Sunday comes up.
Yeah, Cole, you were just talking about it with Florida, Georgia a little bit with the SEC tournament. I'm really looking forward, especially if you get the right teams that go. That's going to be a really fun semifinal and, like a final, especially too, because there's something about the Big Ten and the SEC having their title games on Sunday. Because don't get me wrong, it's great. I love that the Big East, Saturday night, ACC Saturday night, Big 12 Saturday night. But it is kind of cool. You wake up on Sunday, you have two massive conference championship games, and then the Big Ten tournament, kind of takes you right in to Selection Sunday. But I would go SEC and honestly the Pac-12 just because I'm looking forward to getting a potential Washington State, Arizona round 3. Washington State, people forget, swept the regular season series against Arizona. I'm looking really forward to that as well because the Pac-12 too, they might only end up being a 3-bid league. But Colorado, if they end up beating Utah tonight, that's another massive game on the bubble. Utah's kind of fallen out of it a bit. Colorado currently in Lenardi's last 4 in, they're kind of a winning-in scenario. I actually picked Colorado to win the Pac-12 tournament. I think they're going to be able to pull off the upset against Washington State and Arizona, go back-to-back, and lock up that bid and kind of put it in doubt and take it out of the committee's hands to make that decision. But those would be 2 tournaments I'm keeping an eye on, and especially ones that we haven't talked about as much as, the Big East and the others already.
I'm looking at the A10 a little bit with St. Joe's there as the 9. Talent-wise, they're right up there with anyone in that conference. I've been keeping a close eye on them all year. They've struggled to close games on the defensive end, but they played really good defense in both of these games so far in the conference tournament, knocking off Richmond today. You get Dayton at a neutral site. I mean, I could see them knocking them off. I was there for the first half. They were really outplaying Dayton in the first half of the St. Joe's Dayton game at St. Joe's earlier this year. They get VCU tomorrow. I would not be surprised to see on Selection Sunday St. Joe's pulling off some miracles and making the big dance. And then the SEC, any combination of Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, any combination of those teams meeting up on Sunday, I think it's going to be awesome. And then the Big East the next 2 nights, St. John's, UConn tomorrow. And then I think it would just be awesome if it was a Villanova-Providence game, basically like a winning get in and then a loser maybe in, but you're going to have to sweat it out probably. And if you do make it, you'll probably go to the first 4. But that would be awesome. St. John's, UConn, and then Providence, Villanova, and then whoever wins that game, maybe even get in the auto bid as well. I just think that would be a really cool kind of end to the weekend on Saturday night. But Joe, anything else before we head out? And then we got our big, extravaganza coming Monday. We'll drop episodes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I guess, probably next week, as we lead up to the bracket and everything actually getting played.
Yeah, Coyle. I mean, we've kind of already said it best. This is the best time of the year if you're a sports fan. You have college basketball all day. Games were starting at 11:30 this morning. 11 o'clock this morning. 11:30 was yesterday. 11 o'clock this morning, and you got games scheduled. The last game on ESPN is Utah Colorado at 11:30. But I remember last night I got woken up because I had a bet on Utah. I got woken up at like almost 1 a.m. that said Utah Arizona State tipping off now. Like, you have basketball all day, and then a week from today, we're filming this. It's currently 7:36 on Thursday. A week from now you're gonna be right in the middle of the early night slate for college basketball for March Madness, the best time of the year. We've said it a million times. I'm not gonna sit here and beat a dead horse all day, but just if you're not watching college basketball, like, I hope this message gets out to people, because obviously if you're watching this, you're going to probably be watching college basketball. Watch March Madness. It's so much fun. It's the most unpredictable sporting event ever. It's fantastic. Like, if you're not watching it, I can't help you.
All right. Well, Joe said it best. Like we said, we'll be back Monday night recording a breakdown of each and every region. But thank you, everyone, for listening. Please like, subscribe, and we will talk next week when the bracket's officially here.